What if the moment you stopped chasing them was the exact moment they realized they couldn't live without you? Welcome to Inner Shadows, where we uncovered the hidden psychology behind love, distance, and transformation. Today's message dives into why someone feels drawn to you only after you chose yourself. Someone is deeply in love with you right now, and it didn't happen by chance. It happened because of a decision you made. Before anything else, you need to understand what's unfolding beneath the surface, because this moment carries more weight than you realize. This message didn't find you randomly. You didn't just stumble into these words. Something within you slowed down just enough to stay, to listen, to feel. That quiet pull you sensed, that wasn't accidental. It was your intuition recognizing that there's something here you need to see clearly. Because the truth is, someone in your life, someone real, someone you know or once shared something meaningful with, is struggling right now. And the reason is you, not because you chased them, not because you begged for attention or demanded answers, but because you stopped doing something they were certain you would always do. That one silent shift changed everything for them. Welcome to Inner Shadows, where we explore the hidden patterns of the mind and the deeper truths behind human connection. If you're new here, stay with me, because what you're about to understand has the power to change how you see yourself and others. There was a moment, quiet, almost unnoticed, when you chose yourself. It wasn't dramatic. You didn't announce it. You didn't explain it. You simply pulled your energy back. Where there was once effort, there is now stillness. Where there was anxiety, there is now calm. You stopped over-explaining, stopped chasing, stopped bending yourself just to keep something alive. You didn't leave out of anger. You didn't disappear to punish them. You simply refused to abandon yourself anymore. And the moment you did that, something inside them shifted. They never expected it. They believed you would always be there, always patient, always understanding, always waiting. In their mind, your presence was guaranteed. And when someone believes they can't lose you, they stop protecting what they have. They stop prioritizing you. They assume they can return whenever they want, without consequence. But then you changed. You stopped proving your worth. You stopped explaining your pain. You stopped trying to hold everything together on your own. And your silence became louder than anything you ever said. That's when something deeper began to take hold within them. People don't fall deeply in love when they feel in control. They fall when they realize they might have already lost what mattered most. When access to you disappears, when the comfort they relied on is suddenly gone, it creates a kind of internal panic. Right now, whether they admit it or not, they're replaying everything. Your voice, your patience, the way you cared without keeping score, the way you stayed when leaving would have been easier, the way you saw them, not just the surface, but the parts they hid from everyone else. And the hardest truth for them is this: they didn't recognize your value while they had you. They only understood it once your energy was no longer reaching toward them. They feel your absence even if they never say it out loud. They might look fine on the outside. They might act busy, post smiles, carry on like nothing has changed. But internally there's a weight, because you weren't just someone who cared. You were the person who understood them in a way no one else could. And when someone loses the one who truly sees them, they don't just miss the relationship. They miss who they were when they were with you. When you saw them without judgment, you connected with parts of them they didn't even fully understand themselves. And when you stepped back, those hidden parts had nowhere to hide anymore. What you did took strength. You didn't become cold. You didn't try to hurt them back. You didn't play games or seek revenge. You simply chose dignity. You chose self-respect. And that kind of energy speaks louder than words ever could. It sends a message. You know your worth even if they didn't. And that realization, it shakes them. Now they're questioning everything. In quiet moments late at night when distractions fade, they think about you. They wonder why they didn't choose you when they had the chance. They wonder why they assumed you'd always be there. They revisit old conversations. They type your name, then hesitate. Because reaching out means facing a truth they've been avoiding. You were real, and they weren't ready for something that genuine. But here's something you need to understand clearly. Just because someone feels deeply for you now doesn't automatically mean they've grown into the person who can love you the right way. Feelings alone are not enough. Love without emotional maturity still hesitates. Love without healing still runs. Love without growth still delays action. This moment is not about you going back. It's about you recognizing the power you stepped into. You showed them what real love looks like, without pressure, without control, without conditions. And now, without you doing anything at all, they're left to sit with the full weight of your absence. And that silence? It's louder than any argument, stronger than any goodbye. Because silence forces reflection. Distance creates clarity. You taught them your value through your presence, and now they understand it through your absence. But here's the truth you must hold on to moving forward. Not everyone who realizes your worth is ready to meet it. If you rush back now, if you break the silence just because their discomfort reaches you from a distance, you interrupt something that is still unfolding exactly as it needs to. This space between you is doing work that words never could. The distance is teaching them what your presence once tried to show through patience, care, and consistency. Deep down, you already understand this isn't about punishment. It's about alignment. It's about everything settling into its rightful place. The truth is simple but important. The right person doesn't wait until you walk away to recognize your worth. The right person sees you clearly while you're still there and chooses you without hesitation. If you've been feeling an unexplainable pull towards someone lately or sensing that someone is thinking about you, that feeling isn't meaningless. It reflects a deeper awareness within you. Sometimes what we experience as coincidence is actually a quiet alignment between what's happening inside us and what's unfolding around us. And there's a reason this message reached you. You carry a sensitive heart. People like you often confuse love with responsibility, feeling as though it's your job to hold everything together or to manage someone else's emotions. You can sense their regret, their energy, even from a distance. You might dream about them or feel their presence in subtle ways, but none of that means you're meant to go back to how things were. It simply means what you shared was real. But not every real connection is meant to last forever. Some exist to teach, to awaken, and then to complete their purpose. They resisted their growth when you were there. Now, without you softening that experience for them, they're being forced to face it directly. And if they come back, it should only be as someone who has genuinely changed, not someone acting out of loneliness or fear of losing you. If they return, it must be with intention, with consistency, with real effort. Anything less will only repeat the same cycle in a different form. And if they don't return, understand this clearly. You were never difficult to love. They simply weren't ready for someone with your depth. Someone else, someone aligned with your growth and emotional maturity, will recognize your value immediately. There won't be confusion. There won't be waiting. It will be clear. The reason they feel so drawn to you now isn't because you chased them. It's because you stopped. You remembered who you are. And that kind of quiet self-awareness carries a powerful presence. When you stepped back, you didn't just remove yourself, you removed the reflection they had been relying on. Your attention made them feel seen. Your patience made them feel safe. Without that, they lost more than you. They lost the version of themselves they experienced through you. That's why their response feels emotional rather than logical. When someone loses their sense of inner stability, reasoning doesn't guide them, feeling does. At first, they tried to explain it away. They told themselves you were just busy or needed space. They distracted themselves with work, with people, with noise. But distractions don't last. What you shared had depth, and things with depth don't simply disappear. Eventually, confusion set in. They started noticing your absence in the smallest moments, before sleep, in quiet afternoons, in between daily routines. It showed up where they couldn't avoid it, and they began to realize something. No one else made them feel the way you did. Without trying, they started comparing others to you. Not just missing you, but missing the feeling of being understood, of being grounded. You were an anchor for them. And without that anchor, they feel lost in ways they don't fully understand. This is what feels like obsession to them. Not just longing, but a search for something they can't replace. They revisit your conversations not just because they miss you, but because they're trying to reconnect with a version of themselves that felt stable, calm, and real. And now they see something clearly. You didn't leave because you stopped caring. You stepped back because you finally started caring about yourself just as much. That realization is difficult for them to accept. Because you didn't leave with anger or chaos, you left with dignity. And that speaks louder than anything else. You showed them that you don't need their validation to move forward. And there's nothing more unsettling than realizing someone you took for granted is not only okay without you, but growing. Now they may try to re-enter your life, maybe with a small message, something subtle, just to see how you respond. This is where your strength matters most. If you respond too quickly, too eagerly, you show them that nothing has really changed, that they can return without doing the inner work. But if you stay grounded, calm, and centered, you leave them alone with their thoughts. And that's where real growth happens, through discomfort, through reflection. These realizations aren't easy for them, but they're necessary. That's why the energy between you feels so intense right now. You might feel sudden memories, emotional waves, or a sense of connection that doesn't quite make sense. That's what happens when something real is shifting beneath the surface. But understand this clearly. Feeling something deeply doesn't always mean going back is the right choice. It means you're evolving. You're becoming someone who chooses from self-respect, not fear, from clarity, not loneliness. You're learning that you cannot carry someone else's growth for them. That responsibility is theirs. The space you've created is honest, and only in that kind of honesty can real change happen. You didn't use tactics or strategies to make them feel this way. You simply stopped giving your energy to something that couldn't hold it, and now they feel the absence of what they once had. You're growing stronger because you're no longer shrinking yourself to fit into something that didn't honor you. And you're becoming more open because you're no longer guarding yourself against constant disappointment. If you felt this shift within you, then you already know something has changed, and it's not temporary. You will never again reduce yourself to be accepted. You will naturally attract people who see your worth from the beginning. So stay where you are. Stay grounded in your own life. Because what may feel like silence right now, there is actually clarity. And clarity is where everything real begins. What makes this situation so powerful isn't just the emotional shift between you and them. It's the psychological transformation happening underneath it. When you stopped overgiving and started choosing yourself, you interrupted a pattern that had likely been running for a long time. People become accustomed to certain roles in relationships. One gives more, the other receives more. One explains, the other avoids. One waits, the other takes their time. These patterns feel normal until something disrupts them. You became that disruption. And when a pattern breaks, the mind doesn't immediately adapt, it resists. That's why at first they may have acted unaffected or distant. It wasn't because they didn't feel anything. It was because their identity within that dynamic was suddenly gone. They didn't know how to respond without the version of you they were used to, so they leaned on distraction, denial, or even pride to maintain a sense of control. But control built on illusion doesn't last. Eventually, the silence you created forced them into a space they couldn't escape, their own thoughts. And that's where the real shift begins. When there's no one left to project onto, no one left to lean on emotionally, a person is left with themselves, their choices, their patterns, their regrets. This is where awareness grows, but it's also where discomfort peaks. Most people try to avoid this stage. It requires honesty, and honesty often comes with the realization that they mishandled something meaningful, that they took consistency for granted, that they assumed time was unlimited. And when those realizations settle in, they don't feel light, they feel heavy. That heaviness is what you're sensing now. It's not just them missing you. It's them confronting the gap between who they were and who they could have been if they had shown up differently. And that gap creates tension inside them. A kind of internal pressure that pushes them toward change, but only if they're willing to face it fully. This is also why their thoughts about you don't come and go casually. They come in waves. Sometimes subtle, sometimes intense, because you're not just tied to a memory, you're tied to a version of themselves that felt more complete, and the mind naturally tries to return to what felt stable and meaningful. At the same time, your own transformation is just as important in this process. When you stop chasing, you didn't just change how they see you, changed how you see yourself. You move from seeking validation to holding your own value. And that shift creates a completely different energy. It's quieter but far more powerful. You may notice that you no longer feel the same urgency to fix things or reach out. That doesn't mean you don't care. It means your sense of self is no longer dependent on their response. And that's a level of emotional independence that many people never reach. But with that independence comes a new kind of awareness. You start to see things more clearly. You recognize patterns you once ignored. You understand that connection alone isn't enough. There has to be alignment, effort, and mutual respect. This is where many people face a difficult truth. Sometimes the connection is real, but in the end, this was never just about them. It was about you remembering who you are. The distance, the silence, the emotional shifts, all of it pushed you back toward your own center. You stopped chasing, stopped proving, and started standing in your own worth, and that changed everything. What they feel now is a reflection of that shift. Your absence forced awareness, your silence created clarity, and your self-respect revealed a truth they can no longer ignore. But this moment isn't about going backward. It's about deciding what truly aligns with the person you've become. If they return, let it be because they've grown into someone who can meet you with the same depth, consistency, and intention you always offered. And if they don't, trust that nothing real is lost. Only what was never fully aligned falls away. Either way, you've already won because you chose yourself. If this message spoke to something real inside you, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon on Inner Shadows so you never miss what your intuition is trying to show you. And if you truly feel this shift, comment the word alignment below.